Welcome back, Pirates. Today we are taking a quick look at the new ban list that was just announced the other day. We're going to do a full breakdown of why each card was banned, what cards were banned, how this is going to shape the meta, and how this might shape my journey in the budget pirate progression moving forward. Let's start off by taking a look at the first card banned on the list, 8 cost Gecko Moria from OP10. This is going to impact just about every black deck moving forward, as all of them had a major crutch on Gecko Moria being able to play out cards like 4 cost Rebecca, El Meppo, and just being really able to combo their entire turn off of one card. Black decks moving forward are going to have to really prioritize a different top end moving forward, and they're really going to have to rethink their strategy about how they're going to be able to establish a board presence while also focusing getting rid of their opponent's boards. My personal opinion about this ban for Gecko Moria is that it's been long overdue. This is something that many players have been asking for quite a long time now, and this is the one that everybody saw with the writing on the wall that it was bound to happen eventually. Many people thought it would come around OP07, some thought OP08, and it's pretty much been in the books. And again, many people thought this ban was long overdue, so we're not too surprised about this one. I think it's overall pretty fair. Gecko Moria has been the crutch that black decks have stood on for a very long time, so I think this one is pretty well founded. Next up on our list, we have our 4 cost Jinbe, 7 Warlords of the Sea character that can play out another 7 Warlords of the Sea character that is a cost of 4 or less from the hand. This is something that Doflamingo has been abusing time and time again throughout the OP09 meta and the 8.5 meta since they got the structure deck support. Unfortunately, this also has a major impact on decks like Boa Hancock. Unfortunately, decks like Boa are really impacted by the removal of Jinbe because they can't really establish a board consistently anymore, and Doflamingo realistically still is technically a viable option because they maintain their 2 cost teach. Ultimately, this is a ban that I don't really think is very well founded. I think it harms other decks just as much as it harms Doflamingo, but Doflamingo is really the only deck that was abusing it. I think the ban should have been more targeted towards 2 cost Marshall D teach, as that was the primary reason that Doflamingo was able to spam out leader ability every turn no matter what they were playing out. So overall, I don't think this ban was a great target towards hitting Doflamingo, but I think that a hit had to happen no matter what. Moving right along on our list, we have our 3rd card banned. It is Ice Age. This has been a tech card for all black decks just about since OP02. 1 Dawn usage, being able to drop any card -5 cost. I think this is one that I personally saw coming because it's way over abused. It allows black decks to be able to get rid of just about any card if they use 1 to 2 Dawn, use out 2 Ice Ages, and they can pop literally any character in the game. I've seen this card be used time and time again when you establish big bodies turn after turn, and you really just don't expect them to go down when they need -5 cost, but then there's Ice Age. Ultimately, I feel like this ban is pretty well founded. I think that it really hurts black decks, and they're going to have to take a lot of time to find new strategies for ways to get cost reduction in that will warrant the costs that they have to give up for it, whether it's taking life with some of the tech cards out there, or they're just getting -3 from cards like Patchwork, or getting -3 cost from cards like Tempest Kick. Overall, I think this is a ban that should have happened a while ago, as this is another card that black decks have been crutching on for quite a while. I'd like to throw it out there, I actually played a handful of black decks. I played Gecko Moria in OP06, I played Sakazuki in OP05. I really enjoy playing the color, I really enjoy the combo orientation. I actually just picked up a Lucci core again, be able to have some fun with it before I saw the bans. But I feel like It's Time in the Sun needs to adapt to be able to handle the meta in a way that doesn't feel like they're just abusing 2 cards all day long. For our last card on the list, we have Raigo, or Kingdom Come. This is an event that is primarily used in Black Yellow Luffy and in NL to be able to trash life cards to get down to 1 life, as well as getting rid of any card. Being able to trash any character is something that I believe is just too overpowered. I think that even though there's a large cost to it, the 2 decks that primarily use it actually get an advantage out of being able to trash their life when they're being starved most often. So I feel like it's a double positive for a cost of 6 Dawn, being able to get rid of any body and getting closer access to leader ability. Overall, I think this ban is kind of warranted. I don't like the crutch that it puts against Black Yellow Luffy, especially considering they just lost Gecko Moria, so that deck's pretty much dead. And I feel like it hurts Enel when Enel's already been struggling given the release of Blackbeard pirate cards. However, I think this is something that just had to happen eventually. Really quickly, we're going to go over the reasoning that Bandai has given us for each of the bans. So for 8 cost Gecko Moria, they said that this card has seen a very high usage rate in decks that include black cards since its release, and we have been keeping a close eye on both its usage rates and impact on the game with no restrictions on the leader it can be used with, nor on the character cards it can bring into play. This card allows the player to gain a huge advantage too easily. Playing it once is enough to create a large disparity between the number of character cards on the field between the player and their opponent, making it powerful enough to single-handedly determine the winner of a game. We have also determined that developing an 8 cost card that can match or exceed this card's performance will be difficult in the future. As such, we have decided to designate this card as banned. Ultimately, I feel like they could have done something differently. I think they could have limited the card to either 1 or 2 copies in a deck, making it a lot harder to find consistently, or doing what some other games do and putting out an errata to make it so that Gecko Moria could only be used by Thriller Bark leaders. I think that would have brought a little bit more balance without totally killing off every black deck that uses it, but we're going to have to see how this shapes black decks moving forward. The reasoning that Bandai put out for Jinbe being banned is when combined with leader Doflamingo or the 2 cost Martial D Teach that we were talking about before. This card allows the player to play multiple characters in the game early on, creating an advantage beyond what was originally intended. In the early game, even low cost and low power cards can be difficult to deal with, which leads to one-sided battles. Furthermore, as a 4 cost card that puts characters into play, we have determined that it would be difficult to develop a card with equal or superior performance in the future. As such, we have decided to designate this card as banned. Again, I feel like the problem card here is 2 cost Martial D Teach, but I guess I don't make the decisions here, and they feel as though Jinbe was making more of an impact even though it was only used in 1 deck, even though Jinbe was adding some fair disparity to decks like Boa Hancock and a few others that were trying to tech it in. Martial D Teach was the problem card for the 1 leader that it was boosting to the top of the ratings, but again, we're just going to have to see how this shapes the meta. Moving right along, we have their explanation for Ice Age. They said although there are many other cards which share this card's ability to lower costs, this card is the only one that can significantly lower the cost of a character for just 1 cost. This card also synergizes extremely well with other cards with effects that rely on cost, and there is the concern that any future cards which rely on cost will have to be developed with this card in mind, overly constraining future card development. As such, we have decided to designate this card as a banned card. Ultimately, I think this is good for the health of the future of the game. I feel like they can easily make another card that minuses character's cost by 5, but either adding a higher cost restriction to it or adding some penalty on there. That way you're not just using 1 Dawn and getting -5 cost to a character. I feel like it's too powerful for a singular card that really restricts the future of card development. And last but not least, we have our Kingdom Come, or Raigo as it's formerly known. Although this card is one of many event cards with the ability to remove characters with its effect, when used in combination with Enel, the synergy between this card's removal effect and the leader's defensive ability proved to be more powerful than anticipated. There's also the concern that having to develop cards with this combination in mind will greatly limit the future development of high-cost character cards. As such, we have decided to designate this card as banned. Ultimately, given their reasoning, I don't really think it makes sense. Enel wasn't ever really a powerhouse. It never really topped the metas. It never really did anything that really warranted this ban, especially given their reasoning. I feel like it could have stayed. When you consider the fact that some other colors such as blue have Red Rock being able to bottom deck any character for 6, I feel like this just doesn't really make sense with their reasoning. That's it for the banned cards and the reasoning behind them that Bandai has provided us. So what does this mean? I think that moving into the OP10 format, we are going to see a lot more control decks rise to the surface, as many of the banned cards take away from the combo-oriented approach. Gecko Moria and Jinbe getting banned means that decks are going to have to slow down to be able to put pressure on the board and not being able to put out 4 to 5 characters in one single turn. It's going to make a lot of a difference for the meta moving forward. I think Bonnie is going to be a real powerhouse going into OP10, as well as Red Green Smoker. Red Green Smoker is a leader that not many people saw being meta relevant, but in a more control oriented format where it can both attack and defend very well. I think it's going to be really strong into this meta. Again, we have to consider Blackbeard, as it just got new support. It's going to be another control oriented deck that benefits a lot from low aggression being present on the board. Overall, I think we're heading into a format where being able to slow down the pace of the game is really going to reward players. What does this mean for my budget progression series moving forward? I think this means we really need to take a look at what leaders are going to be relevant in the future, take a look at what everyone's testing out, and try to adapt to it. I think that Blackbeard could be a potential option if Kuzans come down in price a little bit. I think that Purple Luffy could be a viable option still, as it plays decently well into the decks that I've listed that I believe are going to be meta relevant. Or I think maybe we could pivot to try something like Robin being a purple yellow leader with Banish. This really hurts control oriented decks, and it gives a lot of synergy between Straw Hat cards in both purple and yellow archetypes. So overall, that's kind of where my head's at right now. There's a couple other leaders that I have in mind, but I'd really like to do some testing before I speak on it further. Overall, let me know what you guys think down in the comments about this ban list and what you plan to be using in the OP10 format. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for future videos. It really helps out and shows that you guys are supporting the channel and you're liking the content that I'm putting out. Let me know if there's anything that you would have changed about these bans, or if there's anything that you would have liked to see banned that wasn't, and overall what you think they should do about the OP11 meta that's happening right now in the Eastern format. We'll catch you guys next time.